So I'm gonna tell y'all a story, and I really think that this story highlights the importance of working with a tax advisor, especially if you are a high income individual. So essentially I took on a new client off the street, and unfortunately they were going through an audit. The reason why they were getting audited was because they hadn't filed any tax returns in the past few years. So of course, the very first thing we did, and this is true for anyone who is in this situation, is the very first thing you want to do is get the tax return filed. Stop the bleeding, and filing the tax return ASAP is how you first stop the bleeding. Now, when we filed the return, the taxpayer did have a tax owed. They had a tax balance due. So I contacted the auditor, sent them the tax return, and informed them that the taxpayer was going to be paying off their balance due. And this next part is where things got a little sticky, because the auditor's response to me sending them the tax return and informing them that the taxpayer was going to pay their balance due, they told me to tell my client to make sure that they paid both the penalties and the interest as well. And that's where I had to step in and put a hard stop, because this is not my first rodeo, and I already know that there are things that they can do to abate those penalties, especially if you are a first-time offender. Sometimes it's as simple as just calling them up and saying, hey, can I get an abatement of this penalty? However, this auditor didn't even mention that. They just simply told me to tell my client to pay the penalties and interest. And it had me thinking, what if they would have told this to my client? Or how many times have they told this to other people and they didn't have a tax professional in their corner letting them know, no, you don't have to pay that penalty, you can possibly get it abated, and they just went and they paid the penalty. This was thousands of dollars in penalties, well more than my annual fee. And I'm not gonna sit here and just say that I saved them money, because they were never supposed to pay that penalty in the first place. But I did protect them and shield them from unnecessary reach, and I protected them from paying more tax than what they should have actually paid. So if you are ever in this situation and you ever received a letter from the IRS saying that you owe penalties and interest, contact them and see what your options are. You want to let them know that you received the letter and that you are working to resolve the issue. So now bring it back to this current story that we're on. Whenever I reached out to the auditor and asked them about what we can do to get any of these penalties and interest abated, which had me questioning things even further. Was this person intentionally trying to get my client to pay more penalties and interest than they actually should have owed? Or did they just simply not know that these penalties could be removed? I'm not really too sure, and I didn't question them any further. I just went ahead and took the proper steps to go ahead and get the penalties removed. But how many times has this happened before in the past? And I think situations like this are a great examples as to why working with a tax professional who knows your tax situation and is experienced with other situations very similar to yours is unmatched and is a great relationship to have in your corner. Now, if you are ever in a situation like this and you don't want to take it on yourself, go ahead and reach out, because we would love to help you. DM me the word script and I'll send you a script of a few responses that I give the IRS and other state revenue departments whenever they are asking my clients for additional penalties and interest.